There are so many digital tools available to fashion designers right now. I know it can feel like a lot. If you're just getting started with fashion design software, it's hard to know where to even begin. And if you've been using digital tools for a while, you might feel this pressure to constantly be adding new ones or upgrading to whatever's trending. But more tools don't necessarily mean a better workflow. So today, I want to cut through all of that and talk about the digital skills that actually matter. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mikkel Drew Pelham. I talk about digital fashion design tools, how to communicate your ideas clearly, and how to turn creativity into a sustainable fashion business. If you're tired of guessing what software to learn, what skills actually move the needle, and what's worth your time as you build your brand, this channel is for you. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep learning with me. The goal of using digital fashion tools isn't to use more of them. It's to use the right ones in the right moments. And when you look at the product development process that an independent designer is actually part of, it really does come down to three core digital skills, not 30, three. Also, keep in mind what I'm talking about are skills. The tools are just how you execute them. Your eye, your craft, your understanding of how a garment is built, that's still the foundation. Digital doesn't replace any of that. It helps you communicate it more clearly and quickly. So let's talk about what those three skills are. The first skill is digital ideation. And this covers everything from gathering inspiration and building out your design direction to actually sketching your ideas digitally. Now, for many designers, ideation is still somewhat of an analog process. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Sketching by hand, pulling physical references, spending time in fabric stores or competitor or aspirational shopping, that's still how a lot of great ideas start. Your eye and your instincts are being trained every time you do that, and no software replaces that. But at some point, you'll likely bring those ideas into a digital space. For concept boards and visual research, a lot of designers are already working in Illustrator. And if that's you, just stay there. You don't need a separate tool for concept boards. Illustrator handles it well, and Photoshop is a great companion. The two work together seamlessly, so if you find yourself moving between them, that's a totally natural workflow. If you're not already using one of the Adobe tools, there are many other digital whiteboard options for creating concept boards. One of my favorites is Make the Dot. It has a whiteboard plus a browser extension that makes it really simple to add images directly from the internet onto your board. And there are a lot of other great tools within the app as well, which you can check out in this video. Unfortunately, Make the Dot is currently only available for enterprise teams, but fingers crossed, they'll bring back the pro tier sooner rather than later because it was a great option for indie designers and smaller brands. In the meantime, Miro is another solid option to explore. It doesn't have as many fashion-specific tools, but it's great for building out your boards. For sketching digitally, Procreate is probably the most popular option right now. I know it is for many of my students at the Fashion Institute of Technology. It's intuitive, it's great for freehand work, and a lot of designers love it for getting ideas down quickly. But if you want something that lives inside the Adobe ecosystem and connects directly to Illustrator and Photoshop, Adobe Fresco would be the way to go. Fresco is Adobe's freehand drawing and painting app and their version of Procreate. It's also very similar to Photoshop with some added bells and whistles, so if you're already using Photoshop, you may opt to just stick with that. Fortunately, both can be used on iPad, and if you're already invested in the Adobe ecosystem, using this would be a smooth, frictionless option. Lastly, if you aren't using Illustrator or Photoshop, and you're just looking for a free sketching tool, both Inkscape and Sketchbook are great options. The whole point here, regardless of which tool you use, is to have a digital space where your ideas can live, be organized, and be shared. That's what digital ideation gives you. The second digital skill is digital validation. And I've intentionally placed this before you start prototyping. That hasn't traditionally been the case for fashion brands, but it's a smarter way for smaller brands, and dare I say all brands, to work because it's a lot more sustainable. And with the breadth of digital tools available, it's much more possible and feasible than ever before. Validation is really about testing your ideas before you commit to making them. And there are 3 layers to it: aesthetic validation, fit validation, and costing validation. Aesthetic validation is asking the questions: does this actually look right? Does the collection work together? This is where you're stepping back and asking the harder questions before you invest in samples. This is also where AI tools are starting to play a real role. A couple of my favorites right now are Fermat and the Fabricant. They're both great for quickly visualizing concepts so you can more easily see how your collection is coming together. And if you're a team using Make the Dot, their AI visuals are fantastic, particularly because they use real fabric data, similar to what's used in 3D software to generate their renders. So the results feel a lot more realistic than a lot of what you see from other AI tools. Fit validation is where 3D software comes in. Tools like Clo let you see your garment on a virtual body before you ever cut a physical sample. You can check proportions, silhouette, ease, and fit intent all digitally. The reason this matters so much is that when you do eventually create a physical sample, it's far more likely to be feasible and close to production ready. This is why I've been such a proponent of designers using 3D and why our Clo 3D course is one of our flagship courses. You've already worked through the issues and you're not discovering them for the first time on a dress form or a fit model after the fabric has been cut and someone spent time sewing a sample. Your 3D asset becomes a huge time, money, and resource saver. Now keep in mind, this doesn't replace a physical fit session. You'll still need to do that, but it dramatically reduces the number of rounds of samples and fit sessions you need to get your garment approved. Costing validation is really about making sure that what you're designing is actually something you can afford to make within your own budget constraints. It's not about quoting the price to anyone just yet. That comes later. This is an internal gut check. Your manufacturer isn't going to give you a final cost until they've made a physical sample. But you may be able to get a raw material cost estimate, and for a smaller independent designer, that's actually a pretty big deal. It gives you a real sense of whether this style is even feasible, whether it fits within your price point, whether it's worth moving forward with, or whether you need to go back and redesign something to bring the cost down before you invest any further. And that's the whole point. Before you show a design to anyone, before you cut a single sample, you want to know, can we actually make this? Because if the answer is no, or not at that price, it's much better to know that now. The goal with all 3 layers of validation is the same: no surprises later. Catch the aesthetic issues, the fit issues, and the cost red flags before you invest in prototyping. The third digital skill is digital documentation. And this is really about translating your design into something that other people can actually act on. Manufacturers, collaborators, technical designers, none of them can work from a sketch alone. This is how you bridge the gap between your creative work and the people who need to execute it. And let's be clear, good digital documentation is created because of your analog foundation. Your ability to write an accurate technical specification comes from understanding how a garment is actually constructed. If you've draped, if you've drafted patterns, if you've sewn and fit a muslin, if you've manually built pattern blocks, that knowledge is what makes your specs trustworthy. Digital just gives you the format to communicate it clearly. The foundation of digital documentation is your technical flat drawing, a clean, proportional drawing of your garment that shows fit, construction, and design. An Illustrator, as I've mentioned many times on this channel, is the industry standard. A well-executed flat communicates more to a manufacturer than 10 beautiful fashion illustrations. It tells them exactly what you're asking them to build. And this is the core of what my Illustrator course covers: how to create professional, technical flats that are production ready. Once you have your flats, the next piece is your technical specification, or if you're ready for production, the tech pack. This is the full document that accompanies your design to a manufacturer for sampling. It includes your flat sketch, your spec measurements, your construction details, your fabric materials, actual physical swatches, your BOM, bill of materials, colorways, and if this is a production tech pack, the pattern and a sample of the garment. I also strongly suggest including your 3D renderings if you have them. Your flat sketch and your 3D rendering together paint a complete picture of the vision of your design for your manufacturer. This is especially helpful at the sample phase if you don't yet have a first proto. And this is a bit of a running joke amongst my colleagues. I'll just say I'm not necessarily a fan, but if you've already created your 3D rendering, you can substitute the schematic render for the flat sketch in your tech pack. For tech packs, there are a few digital tool options depending on where you are in your business. A lot of designers build them right in Illustrator, which makes sense if you're already there. Excel or Google Sheets work too, especially if you're early stage and keeping things simple. And then there's dedicated software like TechPacker or PLM systems if your business is at a scale where that makes sense. And more recently, I've also heard about many companies using Airtable, so you've got plenty of options here. The tool you use doesn't matter as much so long as your tech pack is clear, complete, and leaves as little room for interpretation as possible. Because every question a manufacturer has to ask is a delay. So if you're unsure of how to build a tech pack or what you've been doing hasn't yielded the results you want, my suggestion would either be to take a course like mine to help you better understand what that tech pack should look like, or hire a good freelancer, and not just the cheapest and wordiest, that really understands what should be in the tech pack and how to best communicate with your manufacturer to get a great sample. So those are the 3 digital skills a fashion designer actually needs. Starting with digital ideation, you're building out your concept visually and getting your ideas into a digital space where they can be organized, refined, and shared. Then, validating your designs using 3D and AI tools to test your aesthetic, your fit, and your cost feasibility before committing to physical samples. And finally, documenting your designs with technical flats and specs that give the people around you everything they need to bring your design to life. Those skills really do tell the complete story of product development, at least the role a designer plays. And what I hope you take away from this is that none of these skills exist in isolation from your craft. They work because of the foundation you've built as a designer. Digital extends what you already know. It doesn't replace it. Now, if you've been watching this and thinking about where to start or how to level up, I have courses that cover the core tools in this workflow: Illustrator, Clo, and how to create a tech pack. You can take any of them individually, but if you want to build a more complete digital workflow, I've bundled them together in a few different ways so you can choose what makes sense for you where you are right now. Links to all of these courses are in the description. So now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 3 digital skills feels most unfamiliar or most intimidating right now? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to check out the description for links to any of my courses if that's something you're interested in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with another designer if you found it helpful. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time.